And welcome into the Friday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership with a buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. Joseph, how are you? What's going on?
Doing okay. Got through that draft. Draft's over, right? Yes.
Yeah, it's
we
done.
get to sports now. Oh, no. Sorry. 2 more days of the draft.
And a couple more days to get through here. Ian Safar, how we doing? What's going on?
Doing great. Fun night. Watching the draft. Late one, but fun.
It was fun. It was late. But I will say, very entertaining. First round of the NFL draft. Headlined by the Tennessee Titans, baby. Taking Cam Ward, number 1 overall. Although if you were watching the broadcast on ESPN, you probably didn't know it. Like, you probably were unaware that the Titans took Cam Ward at number 1 overall, given that they spent about 7 seconds on it throughout the entirety of the broadcast, Joe.
Yeah, that is strange. I didn't. I was actually over there with those goofballs at Titans HQ, and so the sound was not on, so I didn't know that went on. But I've seen a lot of reaction to that, where apparently Mel Kiper Jr. is just like, Shedeur Sanders is the best. I can't do it.
Todd. Shedeur Sanders. All night long.
I mean, look, I agree with Mel, but still, Cam Ward is the number 1 pick. He went to the Titans. He's a hell of a story. And apparently ESPN just didn't really
like it didn't exist.
talk. I mean, it's only the number 1 overall pick.
Like a fan.
It's not that big of a deal,
yeah. Like a ghost out there last night. It's like, wow, did the Titans even pick anybody? Or they just skipped the pick at number 1?
That's weird. So I'm seeing, Awful Announcing had something on that, and I see Mike Herndon, friend of the show, saying this was extremely irritating to me. Their read on Ward versus Sanders was out of step with 95% of analysts, and clearly the NFL not asking them to fall in line. They're welcome to voice their own opinions, but when you turn the whole round into you, which is Mel Kiper, then not the kids that work so hard to right to be there, then he was irritated, and that's a little bit of a misstep probably by ESPN there, huh?
Well, I would love to know, like, what world that they've been living in for the last month, because we've known for a while that Shedeur Sanders was not going to go anywhere near the number 1 overall pick. We thought for a while he might go 3 to New York, maybe, and then that has lost a lot of steam over the last couple of weeks. And then it was 9 to the Saints, and then maybe 21 to the Steelers. But regardless, Cam Ward to the Titans was a foregone conclusion. So maybe in some ways that's boring there from that part of it, but you could probably still spend, a couple minutes, maybe a minute or 2 on the Cam Ward thing.
Well, right off the bat, Schefter's breaking the Jacksonville trade.
Yeah.
As the pick is happening, they cut to Schefter. He's holding his phone, reading the terms of the trade
with his
as Jacksonville moving up to 2. And
which is huge news. I mean, that I don't have an issue with that.
So it went off the rails right from there,
And by the way, there's a good reason for us to not waste everybody's time and take the whole time on the pick. Maybe if say, hey, here's a couple minutes and here's your pick, then you have time to talk about Cam Ward before the huge trade, which was a biggie.
Well, Cam Ward had to be on the phone with half the Titans organization in there, so it took a minute.
Well, I had not heard the call. We listened to it in our pre-show meeting.
We did.
Borgonzi
to Amy
Strunk
to Callahan to Brinker. And that's where the video stopped. I could talk to more people after that. I don't know.
So I did not hear the Brinker part. Okay, so I didn't hear the Callahan or Brinker part, but obviously, Borgonzi, hey, then you go to the owner, fine. Great, good stuff.
Cam.
And okay, so then
welcome
Callahan
to the Titans and welcome to Tennessee.
Very good impersonation. And then you go to Callahan, so that's the coach. What did Brinker say? And by the way, I just want to say again, welcome, and I'm Chad Brinker. Like what?
Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, hey, welcome, congrats. Okay, can I get off the phone here? All right, cool.
I'm the boss of those other 2 guys.
Yeah.
All right, so have a good night. Huh?
It's a long phone call. Interesting stuff there.
But it's cool. Like the Cam Ward part of this, by the way,
yeah,
he's emotional. It was
great
awesome
story.
Have no idea how this will go, but I do know that Cam Ward is a great story. I mean, the 0 star. And someone asked this yesterday, and I mean, I have no idea. Obviously, there used to be number one picks who were 0 stars. So they didn't have star ratings for recruits. Terry Bradshaw is probably a 0-star recruit in the 60s. But since they've had these recruiting rankings, even going back to the early 80s, I'm guessing there's never been a 0-star recruit who went number one overall.
Probably not.
And the story is interesting. They played basically like a wing tee, so he really threw the ball and all that stuff. Incarnate Word, Washington State. And again, even a year ago, and I know this may not excite Titans fans because it's only a year later, but a year ago, like, people thought maybe he's like a 4th-round pick, and now he's the number one pick from one season at Miami. You could look at that, I guess, however you want to look at it. Was he undervalued last year? Did he get that much better? Does he keep improving so much each year that all of a sudden we just wait till year 3 in the NFL when he's the best quarterback in the league? Or, was he a little bit overvalued here?
Yeah.
We will find out. But it's a great story. And, I enjoyed him last night. And I think he has a lot of the intangibles that can help you. Doesn't mean you're going to, do that job as well as you need to do it. That's why it's the highest paid job in American sports. But I like a lot about Cam Ward.
Yeah, same. I said it yesterday. From everything I've seen of him, he's a really likable guy. And I think one thing that, it was interesting. I sat down and I watched the Marcus Mariota interview with Bussin' with the Boys yesterday. And I just, not that anything in particular from that relates to
just
this, other than
just hate watching it because you hate him so much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interesting.
Just other than, one of the things they brought up with him was like, do you wish you were more vocal? And do you wish that earlier in your career, you sat there and you told the offensive coordinator or whoever, hey, I don't really like this. Let's not do this. I don't think you're going to have to worry about all that stuff with Cam Ward. Like, Cam Ward to me seems like the guy that will say, yeah, I don't really want to do that. Let's not do that. Let's do this. Let's focus on this. Or I don't like this play in this situation. I like this play in this situation. Let's do that. Like, Cam Ward does not seem, to use a Kuharski phrase here, meek out there.
What did Marcus say?
He said yes. He said he definitely wishes that he was more vocal early in his career.
He was still pretty good. I agree. Cam Ward, I agree. No, he'll have a voice. And it's not like he's gonna come in and start ordering people around or anything like that. But I think he's got a good way about him in terms of being a leader. And that's the thing that, Brian Callahan. I thought Brian Callahan last night probably had the most to say about why they liked him.
Yeah,
I think he explained it the best about why they liked him, and that was the thing he pointed to first. Which again, is it the most important thing? No, the most important thing is seeing the field, quickly making decisions, and delivering the ball on time. But those intangibles are important, and you're hard pressed to find many great quarterbacks in this league now or in the past who didn't have a good feel for that. And I do think that was one of the things that held back Marcus.
Yeah, I like a lot about Cam Ward based on what I've seen. And now the question is going to be, how well can he play? Like, how quickly can he become a quarterback that you feel good about leading your franchise for the foreseeable future? That's going to be the next step here. So, Joe, let's get to the elephant in the room, and we got a lot to get into on the Cam Ward front today, the NFL draft in general. I thought it was a really entertaining draft last night, and frankly, as we're looking ahead to 35 today, as the show goes on, still a lot of really intriguing guys that are available at 35. So we're going to get into all that. We got a lot to get into, and we're going to kind of be all over the place throughout the show, just in terms of your reaction to the draft. One thing we talked about, kind of reporting right off the jump here from Schefter, and they got really quickly into the Travis Hunter trade and all that. One thing that Schefter did bring up when the pick was being made for the Titans was that the New York Giants, somewhere along in the process here, offered obviously this year's first as a swap with the Titans, plus next year's first round pick, and quote, multiple other picks to the Titans. And the Titans basically said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. We're not interested. We want Cam Ward. So, we wondered heading into all this, Joe, was there actually a legitimate offer from anybody else out there to the Titans for the number 1 overall pick? And it seems like the answer was yes, that the Giants gave one. And the Titans' response to that, without getting into too much specific last night, Joe, was basically, yeah, there's not really a price for a franchise quarterback there. So what did you make of that report from Schefter of the Giants' offer of obviously a pick swap this year, next year's first-round pick, and multiple other picks that the Titans declined?
Well, I give a shout-out to Dane from Nolensville, who texted me before the show with something I've also been thinking. The Tennessee Titans right now could be sitting there with Travis Hunter, and they could draft Shedeur Sanders today. And I'm sorry, they would be way better off. I like Cam Ward. It has happened. They're all in on him. It's going to be fascinating to see, and it could work out. But they could have Travis Hunter right now, and they could be getting Shedeur Sanders, who I think will have more success in the NFL than Cam Ward. I know that a lot of people are going to shout down that take, or they could have had a pretty good haul. I mean, I laughed at, and I feel bad, whoever in the text line that I shamed in the moment, if you remember who you were, I was like, they're not giving them a first next year. No way. Well, they offered a first next year, along with, again, Schefter did not detail every pick,
right. but multiple picks.
Multiple picks, including a first next year. Oh, boy. I mean, again, it's the Jags going to get Hunter. The framework is all here for, wow, these guys did it. Good for them. They stuck to their guns and they got their guy. Or, holy crap, another huge case of mismanagement for a franchise that continues to circle the drain. I don't know which one it's going to be, but it's hard to look at that deal and not go, ooh, baby. Man, you might have wanted to take that sucker.
Well, there's something about that makes me look at the Titans a little bit more and say, okay, I think I may believe you. And we'll get into that coming up next. Cam Ward has been drafted by the Tennessee Titans. He is the next quarterback of the Titans. The Cam Ward era has begun. We'll take your thoughts on that. We'll take your thoughts on all things NFL draft from last night and looking ahead to pick 35 throughout the show as well. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
trade offers that you got for number one?
You know, I did want to listen because I think you have to do your due diligence and listen, and I did that. But, you know, I think we came to a decision that, you know, we weren't going to move off that pick, and we wanted Cam.
What made you so convinced? I mean, the reports of the conversation was pretty high. What made you so convinced that you should pass that up and have him be the guy that you?
Well, I just think if you identify a franchise quarterback, there's really not a price that you can pay for that, in my mind. Like I always said, that's the most important position on all of sports. And, you know, if you come to a consensus, and we did, that he has the potential to be that, like I said, he's a young quarterback and he still has a lot of things to work on. But I think the intangibles with him, his work ethic, his want to become better, you know, we felt comfortable with that.
Did those trade offers come before or after the 3-week period where you said, you know, before the draft, where you said you guys had made your mind up?
They came before, yeah, and after, you know, but it was multiple times we had some offers. I don't want to go into specifics of the teams and what the offers were, but, you know, we were approached multiple times for that pick.
How many different teams?
I don't want to go into the specifics on the teams or anything like that, but just like we had offers.
That's Mike Borgonzi yesterday after they drafted Cam Ward, discussing the decision to draft him, not move out of it, and somewhat discussing the offers that they got there.
It was before and after and during.
It'll happen in the future too.
Yeah. Oh man, good times over there.
Look, I'll say this. So as we discussed, Schefter put it out there last night that the Giants offered pick swap this year, next year's first round pick, multiple other picks to the Titans. I have been very consistent on this. I don't know that Cam Ward would have been my selection. I'm still skeptical that he's going to turn into the type of quarterback that you want him to turn into with the number one overall pick. Having said that, I do start to believe, Joe, you know, they talked about him being the number one player on their board. I'm starting to think maybe he was last night. From this standpoint, I have said throughout this whole thing that if you are the Titans and you believe that Cam Ward is that guy and you believe that he's that type of player, then there's not a price. I am totally with them. Like if that's what they legitimately believe, which clearly they do, and we'll see whether or not they're right. But if they believe that Cam Ward is that franchise guy, then I have no problem with them turning down the picks that the Giants offered, because I have said it, there is not a price for a franchise quarterback. So I respect the Titans for making that decision if that's what they believe.
Yeah. And we've already got, you know, a texter saying this was an Amy pick and I'll never be convinced otherwise. Hopefully we succeed in spite of it all. I know that our guest, if he's coming on at 7, because, oh my God, he had to work till 10 p.m.
Could be some fireworks later today.
If he, I know that he now is going to spend weeks saying how this was. I mean, he already said the other day that, you know, Amy either made them do it or Amy won't spend on anything, so they had to do it. I don't buy that. I think that I don't think these guys are hostages. Okay, I don't think so. And if you were there listening to, in particular, Brian Callahan, and I think we should play some Brian Callahan at some point, and some of the stuff he said about Cam Ward. You know, they're listening to those guys talk about him. Look, I mean, I understand in this league, I get if you can have one of these jobs, you can get paid for a while and just, you know, you'll take it. But you have to let people do their jobs. I think these people did their jobs, and it's not like outlandish that you could feel this way about Cam Ward. I think that's where, you know, some people could take it a little far here. I don't think he's that. And you know, the top of the board, I guess I might disagree with you some. I mean, you know, like Borgonzi's answer was, yep.
Well,
you know, but there's the
he's
quarterback.
at least close.
Yeah.
Because if he's not, then there's no way you're not taking that deal.
Right. I mean, but that's the thing. But see, that's where it's like, you know, it kind of becomes irrelevant, you know, because what they said is the most important thing, right? If you believe you have a franchise quarterback, that's priceless, which to me is also like, that means that, yeah, okay, we had Travis Hunter higher rated than him, like everybody else in the world, but he's a franchise quarterback, you know?
Yeah.
So whatever. I mean, I think they believed it, and I believe them when they talked about him that they believe it. And I'm with you. If you truly do, then you better not screw it. Then you better not mess around. Do it. Take him.
Yep. Head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Jared in Spring Hill. Jared, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, color me unhappy, fellas. Like, there's a lot of pressure, and like the Titans have just given some severe PTSD for me and drafting on draft night, especially when they traded AJ Brown. Like, it seems like there's something all the time, but it's always different, but yet it always just is so mind-boggling. And I feel bad for Titans players because we really put some of these people in bad spots. And I'm going to go back to Burks. Like, we put Burks in a terrible spot, and all the pressure and all of the drama that came with it when we traded AJ Brown, then these expectations are now on Treylon Burks. And now we do, I feel like, a very similar thing. We make it's a very similar decision when we draft Cam Ward, because they have to know that whenever this comes out, that 75% of the people who probably didn't want Cam Ward anyways is now going to even not want Cam Ward even more whenever the news came out that the Giants are going to do a pick swap and next year's first, and then a myriad of other picks. And it just feels like the Titans are just this dog at the dog park chasing their tail around, and they're saying they want more picks in the top 100, but they don't make the trade to do so. They also say that they're going to be disciplined in their approach by taking the best player in the draft. He's not the best player in the draft. Like, even in group think, I feel like they could have gotten to the point of where they would have understood that Cam Ward is not the best player in the draft. And it just seems like to me that they're just chasing their tails around. And like, I just don't understand. And I know I'm jaded before then, and I was biased because I didn't want the pick, but every organization bends over backwards for these quarterbacks. And I hate the new age of these quarterbacks. Every organization risks their souls and the skins on their back for these people. And then it feels like the less that these quarterbacks are on these teams, they get traded, or they get cut, or they get ruined, like Will Levis.
This is a dissertation, Jared.
Like, what's that?
This is a dissertation.
I'm sorry.
You're like ranting here.
This second part is my rant, because it just feels like in this new age NFL, we bend over backwards and risk so much for these quarterbacks, and very rarely do they pan out. And I feel like it could have been so much easier to just take the best player, or to take the trade, and to go down and start doing something to start building up this team, because
we got you.
So many holes. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. We got you.
Tighten down, brother.
An impassioned.
Jared's down.
It was long, but it was impassioned. And look, I think he spoke well for what a lot of people feel. There are two kinds of people in this fan base. Okay. There are the Cam Dews. And trust me, there will be way more Cam Dews as time goes on.
Yes, there will.
And there are the what are you doings?
Yeah.
There are the Cam Dews, and they're the what are you doings?
How long have you been sitting on that one?
I actually came up with it this morning. Thank you. Tom Izzo helped me work through it in the pre-show meeting.
Thank you.
The Cam Dews and the what are you doings?
Yeah.
And it's probably a pretty good split right now. The Cam Dews will eventually, again, the people get excited in camp and all that. But you know what? Totally valid points. And I would have done either of the other two options overtaken. That's what I would have done. But again, I believe them that they believe in the guy. So we'll see.
Now, here's one thing that I will say as we sit here today. Are we going to talk about the offer that the Giants had? Sure. And should the Titans have taken it? Should they not? Sure, we'll talk about that for a little while. But the bottom line is here now with Borgonzi, Brinker, and Callahan. That part of it doesn't really matter anymore, because you're either Cam Ward is going to come in and be a great player for you, and you're all going to be here for a while, or he's going to fail and you're all going to get fired. So that's what this is. You know that if you're them heading into this, that's what you've signed up for, that, which is fine. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, we're not going to get to a point 2 years from now and be like, well, they should have traded out and taken that pick from the Giants, because we might say that if we're saying that about them, they're not there anymore. They're all going to be gone at that point, if that's the way it works out.
And boy, will Titans fans have been treated to one hell of a stretch. The worst stretch in franchise history.
Or he's going to come in and be really, really good.
I'm saying
I know
in
what you're
your
saying.
scenario.
Yeah.
In that scenario, will they or they finally done it here.
615-737-1025, our phone number. A lot more of your reaction to get to on the selection of Cam Ward by the Tennessee Titans. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
explain multiple, like in detail, like some of the things that you like about him. But if you had to pick like one particular feature and talent trait that he has, what would it be to make you believe that he could turn things around for this organization?
To me, it's the leadership ability and the way he's able to make those around him better. That to me is a huge part of the position. And that's what I think ultimately separates. There's a lot of talented players. There's a lot of guys that can throw the football. There's a lot of guys that can play the position. But the guys that transcend have a unique ability to connect with their teammates and then raise the level of everyone around them. And I think that's what he has shown to do really at every stop he's been. And hopefully that continues here.
That's Brian Callahan yesterday. Titans draft Cam Ward, number 1 overall. Taking your thoughts all program long, 615-737-1025. Jared Stillman will be with us at 7 o'clock. He's probably a little too excited to come on today. That one could get a little spicy. So we'll see what happens going up at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if he wants to win, then, we'll let him, like, dribble in his applesauce for a minute, and then, we can talk about the draft.
I had some applesauce yesterday.
Did you?
Pretty good.
I hate applesauce.
Allison loves it. So I had some, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, the toddler really likes applesauce. It's good stuff. Let's get to your.
You stole some of her applesauce.
I did.
What's wrong with you, man?
Let's get to your phones. Let's head to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Chris in Atlanta. Chris, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for taking my call again. Joe, I'm going to push back on you. I really am. You wanted us to trade back. I look at it and go, okay, say you trade back. You trade back to number 3. You're saying we're going to get Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter wasn't on the board.
No. Someone texted me this, so I need to clarify. There's 2 scenarios other than this, right? There's taking Ward or taking Hunter 1 and being here. So, in other words, not taking the trade, but taking Hunter 1. That's one scenario. The other scenario is taking the trade. In that case, I'm not saying you're getting Hunter. You see what I'm saying? There's 2 other things you could have done. One is taking him 1, and right now you could potentially get Shedeur Sanders, or take the Giants trade, move back. I'm trying to think. So what are you getting at 3 then? If you're the Titans, you might be getting Abdul Carter. Yeah.
Yeah. You're debating between Abdul Carter and Shedeur Sanders. But even then, I'm like, several other teams passed on Shedeur Sanders. New Orleans had problems. Other teams have had problems. And it kind of says something funny to me that the New York Giants traded back into the first round and still didn't go get Shedeur Sanders.
Sure.
So it doesn't make sense for me to say Shedeur would have been the guy.
Yeah, look, you're welcome to disagree with me. I like him the best of the quarterbacks in this draft. I wouldn't have taken any of the quarterbacks in this draft high in this draft, including Shedeur Sanders. But I'm just saying, I just happen to like him the best. We'll see who's right. I may finally be wrong.
Shedeur going to get drafted?
But
he'll be a hell of a UDFA for somebody.
But wait a minute. How often has Tennessee had the number 1 overall draft pick? We haven't had the number 1 overall draft pick since 2017. And the last time we did that, we traded out and we gave up Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. Now, granted, Wentz has not been the great quarterback. Goff has kind of been a pretty good quarterback now that he's in Detroit, and he led the Rams to the Super Bowl. So I can't sit there and say number 1 draft picks don't come around often. I disagree with the majority of my fellow Titans fans saying we should have drafted Shedeur or we should not have drafted Cam Ward. What else would we have done? If you don't go get Cam Ward, you really want to stick around with Will Levis for year 2 or another year and hope that we go get another high draft pick for the upcoming draft class of quarterbacks? You guys are really asking a lot, Titans fans.
Okay.
We have very rarely do we get the number 1 overall draft pick.
So if
take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Go ahead.
If you took the Giants deal, you're going to have 2 real high picks next year because both of these teams will suck this year.
Right.
So
wait a minute,
and I have no idea what the QB prospects will look like next year, but you could definitely get a quarterback next year with that, and you could have strengthened your team. Now you needed to get more picks. You've talked about getting more picks, right? I hear what you're saying. You have the number 1 pick, but we can also go through all the quarterbacks who have been the number 1 overall pick, especially in the 2000s. And my God, it's an unbelievably bad list of people. So, we'll see.
I'm going to propose a what if. What if the Giants go get Cam Ward, and Cam Ward turns into the Giants version of Jaden Daniels, and he leads them to the playoffs? That number one, their first-round draft pick, becomes a low first-round draft pick.
Yeah, I mean,
so yeah,
there's a lot of hypotheticals we could talk about today.
You have a high and a very low. So
it could happen. The more likely scenario is it's probably going to be a pretty high pick. The Giants roster outside of the quarterback in general sucks. It's not good.
Anyway, fun debate. Love to hear you guys. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chris. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Jeff to the program. Jeff, thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
No good.
Hey, I got a question. We all know that Brian Callahan is probably going to be a lame duck, meaning he's probably going to get fired next year. So my question is, how many wins do you think it'll take for him to keep his job?
Thank you for the call, Jeff. I would answer it this way. If they're viewing it that way, that there's a certain win total that he's got to hit, they're screwed already. That would be my answer to that. If they think, well, if Brian Callahan wins 7 games this year, we'll keep him. But if not, we're going to fire him after this year, then they're screwed. That's how I would answer that.
Yeah, I think the answer, honestly, is it might be more about Cam Ward than it is about team success. Everybody knows this team's bad. Like, it is what it is. Like, this is the worst roster in the NFL. I mean, and maybe that changes after this weekend. They might have an amazing draft and all that stuff. But right now, at this moment, it's the worst team in the NFL. It's the worst. That's why they picked number 1. So I don't think the bottom line is the most important thing there. I think it's Cam Ward playing well. Yeah, you need to win some games, but I could absolutely see the Titans going 6-11, and Cam Ward shows promise. And I guess ideally, like September Cam Ward or November Cam Ward is better than September Cam Ward. I mean, I
think you have to keep
how
going.
Does it look? Yeah, someone texted earlier, and I agree. It's like right now, if you're the Titans, you should be looking at this like not 100% no matter what, but you should be looking at this like Callahan should get the next 2 years with him.
Yeah,
like, you should.
Unless it becomes
terrible.
obvious that he is just so far in over his head that you feel like you got to make a move. I mean, you have to leave the door open for that. But again, like that to me is different than just saying what's the win total. Like, if they get to 6 wins next year, and I almost said Sanders, good gracious, and Ward is playing better and he's improving as the year goes on, the last thing I want to do at that point is be like, well, cool, we know that you were getting better and improving. Here, we're going to rip the rug out from underneath you and go bring in a new head coach and a new offensive system and start basically all over again with you. Now, again, there's a line there. Like, I don't think you just keep Brian Callahan no matter what if it's clear that it's awful because you're scared to death of bringing in a new coach either. So you have to have some discernment there. If you're Brinker, if you're Borgonzi, if you're Amy Adams-Strunk, which may be the most important part of all this, of kind of seeing what that line is and towing the line. But yeah, like in a perfect world, Brian Callahan is the coach. Cam Ward gets on the field at some point this year, probably in week 1. And from week 1 to week 17, there's some progress there. And if that's the way it goes, I don't really care what the win total looks like at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I'm under no illusion that the Titans are about to draft Cam Ward number 1 and go on some playoff run.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like quarterback is the only thing he's going to be evaluated on, but it is the most important thing by far, especially when they draft number 1.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it comes down to. Yeah. If it's just bleep show after bleep show with specialty, who knows? It's how does it look?
Right.
I mean, we'll know when we're seeing it.
Yeah, but I mean, if it looks anything like it looked last year, then we're going to be having a conversation probably about a new head coach at that point. So let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Mike in Gallatin. Mike, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, guys, thanks. Despite whatever we feel about the pick, I can say that at least this pick is distinctly different than the 2 second-round pick quarterbacks that we've took over the last couple of years. I feel like both of those guys were kind of like what-if projects, especially Willis. What could have been like a freak athlete situation, I guess. But I at least feel that Ward is distinctly in a class that is above at least those 2 guys. So if nothing else, we can be, I don't know if excited is the word, but we can be maybe more encouraged than we were when we were picking those 2 guys. But man, I'm just looking at all the graphics that popped out of the the Titans first round picks and then the Titans just draft picks in general. And it just makes you go, man, we've actually got a hit on one of these, or we're going to continue to be labeled as a joke because we just haven't really gotten any of these first round picks or anything to hit. One last little kind of funny joke. Tell me why the Titans are not licking their chops to take an injured cornerback on pick 35, Will Johnson. They're just licking their chops. It fits the MO completely. And that's just kind of my funny take. I don't think that's what they're going to do, but I don't know. It just seems like a Titan thing to do.
Thank you, Mike.
Pass front office for sure.
Yeah. I mean, this front office, it kind of seems with the way they've gone this offseason that they may not even consider Will Johnson, right?
And by the way, they should if he's there. He's freaking good.
He is good. Apparently there's some knee concerns with him, but he's a good player. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More your draft reaction to Cam Ward to the Titans, plus some other headlines from the draft last night that I thought was a pretty wild night in round one. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Cam, congratulations. I'm curious, you've talked about having the chip on your shoulder. You've been the underdog from day one the whole way, I guess, up until this past year at Miami when you really lit it up. I'm curious, what's it going to be like now, kind of flipping the role and the perception of, well, you're the number one pick. There's no underdog anymore. There are expectations.
Ain't nothing flip for me. Still a lot of people out there who be talking crazy. Maybe some of y'all in that room. So, only thing that matters to me is my locker room and, the coaching staff and, the support staff in the building. So, we plan on changing things around, but it only starts one day at a time. We just got to keep working.
That's Cam Ward last night, Titans quarterback. There's still people out there talking crazy. Maybe some of you morons in that room.
It was awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so in the Titans headquarters, they did it differently than they used to do it. But they have him. Well, I guess they kind of did this with Levis, but they had a different room, and it's a whole wall is like the screen.
Yeah.
And so like his face again, it was like seriously like the Wizard of Oz or something. And Cam Ward's huge face looking at everybody, and he's like, people talking crazy. He says, some of you in that room looking into Paul Kaharski's beady eyes. Oh my! I
think that one's got some potential.
It does.
Cam Ward versus PK.
Because a few times last night, Cam's like, I don't care what people outside say. And, he's got an edge, which I like. And also, in the next couple of years, he's going to play in a lot of losses. And there's going to be a lot of, what happened there in that play, Cam? Why did you throw the interception? And then I think we got some real potential here.
That's kind of like an old lady voice.
Yeah, I think that was like Adam Sandler doing an old lady on SNL. That's my new Kaharski. Every word more worthless than the last.
No, look, in all seriousness, every time I hear Cam Ward speak, I'm like, yeah, I like this guy. I really like it. And yesterday was no different. I think from that standpoint, he's going to be awesome around here.
Yeah. And I like him. I like him as a player. I think he's got a chance. Wouldn't have done it. Right now, the what are you doings are, I would say, at least in our response, are beating the Cam Do's.
Yeah. I would say that's.
I know you'd like me to stop getting rid of these.
I will
absolutely not get rid of it. This will be forever and ever.
All right. So real quickly, let's take a look at what else happened last night. Just headlines before we get to Stilly coming up at 7:00. So the Jags make the move. They move up to number 2, and they get Travis Hunter. So you've got Travis Hunter now to deal with if you're Cam Ward in the AFC South with the Jags moving up. First 3 were chalk in terms of the picks we expected, not the teams we expected. Abdul Carter goes 3 to the New York Giants. Now, the first receiver off the board was Ted McMillan at 8, which was a little bit higher maybe than people thought that he might go. The Bears had the opportunity to take Tyler Warren at 10 and didn't. They took Colston Loveland, who I think is a good player, but I don't think he's Tyler Warren.
I totally agree.
Which means Tyler Warren drops to 14 to the Colts. So in your division last night, you had the Texans trade out, and we'll get to that here in a second. You had Travis Hunter to the Jags, Tyler Warren to the Colts, who I think are 2 really good picks there by those 2 teams. You had Emeka Egbuka off the board at 19 to Tampa Bay. So there's a receiving target that we've talked about for the Titans at 35. That was off the board. Matthew Golden to the Packers, by the way, at 23. Which I was stunned
how
by.
have you waited this long to revel in this?
I was absolutely stunned by, and I was thrilled when he went off the board at 23.
Got and then all caps text from you late night.
Oh, I was so happy. And then the Texans trade out, and the Giants trade back up into the first round to take a quarterback. And I thought, all right, is this where Shadeur's going? No, Jackson Dart to the New York Giants at number 25 overall. The very next pick, the Falcons trade up and trade a first-round pick next year, plus other multiple other picks to get back into the first round to get James Pierce out of Tennessee. It was a wild night last night in the first round.
Man, yeah. So, again, kind of like I did not realize that. I just saw they picked him, so I didn't realize they had done all that initially to go get him. So James Pierce, some teams I think were like, no thanks with him. And a lot of people were projecting based on what some teams were saying that he was going to go pretty, well into the second. He's a first-round talent. He's too talented to not go. So I tell you what, the Falcons, boy, did they change their D last night. Talk about bolstering your defense on one night.
Jalen Walker and James Pierce. Now, the price that they gave up to do it, I mean, they traded 46 this year, 242, and a first rounder next year for 26 from the Rams and 101 from the Rams.
You expect him to be a star move. So he's got the talent.
It's just a wild move there. And look, I mean, it's 2 years in a row that the Falcons have done something in the first round where you're like, wow. Last year obviously was Penix with what they did there.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the first round, I mean, Jahad Campbell drops all the way to 31, goes to the Eagles from Alabama.
Little swap there. Eagles jump a spot up.
And Josh Simmons,
another SEC defender to the Eagles.
Yeah, and Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle to Ohio State.
That's a really good value pick for the Chiefs.
Which means, looking around now, kind of at the board, there are still some really good edge rusher options that are on the table for the Titans at pick number 35. Of course, one player who did not go in the first round last night is Shedeur Sanders. So when's he going to go? Is he going to go at the beginning of the second round? If he does, that's good news from the Titans from a couple of different standpoints. Number one, is there a run on quarterbacks to start the second?
Yep.
With Sanders and Milroe and Chuck and all those guys. If so, the Titans could have an opportunity to trade back and pick up some more picks. If they don't, and let's say, maybe Sanders goes and then we'll see after that, Sanders could go first pick of the second round to Cleveland. We'll see. But you could have some really good either receiver or edge rush options on the table in day number 2 today for the Tennessee Titans at number 35.
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously, you want Shedeur to go, and you got some really intriguing players. We can get more into that during the rest of the show. I'll tell you a guy, and it's not a position we've talked about, and there are more severe needs, obviously, because you got to get a receiver, you got to get an edge. That Emin-Wari guy from South Carolina, man,
he's really good.
Hey, the Ravens seem to know what they're doing in this league, and what do? They go get ball-hawking, field-rangy safeties all the time, and they just keep kicking everybody's butt. So I'm just saying, that kid he has exceptional traits, and he actually made plays in college. So just throwing it out there.
Well, and look, just looking at players that are still on the board at 35, and like you said, we're going to get to this throughout the show as well. But Will Johnson is there. We've talked about him. Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall, who's got some off the field concerns, but he's there. You brought up Emin-Wari. Ezaraku from Boston College is there. Luther Burden is there. Jaden Higgins is there. So the Titans, if they stay at 35, are going to have an opportunity to pick a pretty good player here. I'm also interested to see if they're able to trade back. How far would you trade back? Because I think at this point, with the players that are still on the board, you could trade back maybe into the 40s and still have an opportunity to get a pretty good player.
No question.
Maybe something to look at if you're the Titans today, and hoping that there's a run on quarterbacks to begin the second round. We'll be joined by Jared Stillman coming up next. Get his thoughts on the Titans and the NFL draft from last night. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Out number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Friday morning. And we welcome in our friend Jared Stillman to the program, fresh off the award-winning draft show last night. Jared, good morning. How are you? How are we feeling?
I am in a good mood. How is Joe Rexrode this morning? His top quarterback still on the board as he is upset about Shedeur Sanders not going as Mel Kiper was last night on ESPN's broadcast. Joseph?
Boy, Mel was mad.
I'm not upset. Yeah, I wish I would have heard Mel. But I'm glad that Jared has a reason to be happy and excited, other than hopefully you're not on some weed gummies. That was an interesting detour in the draft show last night. But I'm just glad you're excited and happy about the Shedeur Sanders thing, so you can't bitch about the Titans. That's good. This should be a fun, sunshiny segment from Stilly, huh?
You know, I am very upset about the Titans trading down that offer of picks from the Giants. I feel as if the Titans are going to rue the day that they turned down the number 3 pick in this year's draft, the number 34 pick in this year's draft, and the number 1 pick in next year's draft. But again, the Titans, the Titans said they had Cam Ward number 1 on their board. And the way they talked about Cam Ward, this reminds me of when I talked to Tony Khan, whose dad is Shad Khan, owns the Jags. And Tony is really heavily involved in the Jags and owns the wrestling thing. And speaking of weed gummies, Tony, I think I'm just not making any allegations, but I smelled a very strong odor at the Super Bowl when he came on the show once.
Good enough.
And I remember talking to him like last year after they signed Trevor Lawrence. And my biggest takeaway from just that conversation was, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is Joe Burrow. And at the time they were paying Trevor Lawrence like he was Joe Burrow, but they think that he's Joe Burrow. And I once somebody thinks that, like, there's no convincing them like, hey, Trevor Lawrence really isn't that good. Like, he's fine, but he's not Joe Burrow. And it's like, no, he's Joe Burrow. I guess the Titans think Cam Ward is Joe Burrow because the way they talk about him like a prospect is like he was Caleb Williams last year. We're not moving. He's a slam dunk. We're taking him. He's a generational talent. He's a number 1 on our board. He's number 1 on nobody else's board. And so the question has to be, who's right? The Titans or everybody? And over the last handful of years, we've had a lot of those moments where it's like, okay, who's right? The Titans or everybody?
Well, you say that the Giants were willing to trade up to go get him. So does that change your opinion on maybe how he was viewed around the league?
No, because the Giants.
No, forget that fact.
And the general manager and coach are about to get fired.
Oh.
I mean, they like, again, I'm not the biggest Jackson Dart fan in the world. And I don't know who would have taken him if they hadn't traded back in or whatever. But the Giants are a desperate team. And I believe that was pure desperation to go take a quarterback to say, this is our guy. We're going to build around him. Trust us. Keep us as coach and general manager, more so than it was the idea that, hey, we think he's Caleb Williams too.
So I agree, Jared. I mean, I agree. Like, we agree on what they should have done. I mean, if I was the Titans, I would have done either of the other two options, which is I would have taken that trade. But also, I would have taken Travis Hunter, and I'd be sitting here looking at Shedeur Sanders maybe. My goodness, how much better off would I be? But I do fear – I fear as we move forward, Jared, that we're going to have – like, I know you already started doing this. Amy made him do it and all this stuff. Like you can't wrap your head around the idea that they actually think what they say about Cam Ward. And I really think you shouldn't go down that road because it's dumb. Because I believe these guys. You don't believe these guys that they thought. I mean, there are other teams that like Cam Ward. I don't think he's going to work out. I don't think he's that good. But I think you're about to embark on a journey of like creating this world where there's just no way anyone could have thought that about Cam Ward. And that's not a real world, Jared.
I go back to the idea of everybody else's draft board. I mean, it's not like everybody else's draft board said that Cam Ward was – number 43. I mean, but again, Cam Ward was the consensus 10th best player in this draft, according to all of the draft boards together. Like, for instance, Mel Kiper's losing his crap over Shedeur Sanders, but Dane Brugler has Shedeur Sanders in the 40s. So it's not as if everybody thought that Shedeur Sanders was some generational passer, and every time a quarterback went, you'd hear Mel Kiper on the broadcast last night start talking about how Todd Marinovich went ahead of Brett Favre. But again, I think Cam was probably like the consensus 10th best player in this class. And they kept saying it. Your people at The Athletic kept reporting it, that if Cam Ward was in last year's class, he would have been in the Michael Penix, Bo Nix range. And so if the Giants had offered me that huge package for Bo Nix isn't some bum, but if they had offered me that huge package for Bo Nix, I still would have taken it, even after what I saw out of Bo Nix last year. And so when it comes to Cam Ward, I'm like, again, I go back to, is everybody else right, or are the Titans right? And this was a bad draft to begin with.
But again, we know the Giants. But we know the Giants.
But the Giants are idiots, Joe. Okay, you want to be like the Giants?
Sure. Okay, I know. There's always an answer.
Okay, sure. You want to be like the Giants? You said sure.
Well,
you want to be like the Giants?
Well, the Titans are the worst franchise in the league, Jared. So I mean, we're talking about teams in the same neighborhood here. But the point is, they're not alone. They're not on an island. And also, what Borgonzi said last night, that to me is exactly the point, right? That when you think you have a franchise quarterback, it is priceless. Like, he said, yeah, there was him on the board. Sure. Yeah, whatever. I mean, I highly doubt that they had him ahead of Travis Hunter on their big board. But do you not agree with that sentiment, that if you believe that, yes, this guy is going to be that guy at quarterback, that overwhelms the other data?
Sure. But
okay.
I go back to the Jags. Do you believe they think that Trevor Lawrence is Joe Burrow?
Well, right. The teams are wrong all the time, Jared.
Right. The Jags think that Trevor Lawrence is Joe Burrow. He's not Joe Burrow. Apparently, the Titans think that Cam Ward as a prospect is Joe Burrow. He's not Joe Burrow as a prospect. I don't know how many different insider are, unless you think every single one of these insiders that is quoting these league sources that say things like, yeah, I take Bo Nix and Michael Penix ahead of him. Or, yeah, he's, 18th out of 21 quarterback. And really, not even 18 out of 21, 18 out of 20, because Shedeur Sanders didn't go in the first round. But 18 out of 21 of these quarterbacks that went in the first round over the last 5 years. I mean, you think Matt Miller's making that up, Joe?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think they're thinking that. So, again, the Titans are
the question is, do you think the Titans are being honest?
Slam dunk 1-1.
You're still not addressing the initial question. You're still not addressing it. Do you believe the Titans, these guys who are evaluating them, these guys whose jobs are on the line, do you believe that they believe that about them or not?
Well, do you trust the Titans to tell the truth?
I don't think they're lying now. Do I think the Titans lie? Yeah, all teams lie. Do I think that these guys are up here as hostages with Amy pulling their little, voice box, telling them to say that they think Cam Ward's awesome? No, but I think that you're about to start telling your listeners that, which is stupid.
I just think that it's one of either two things. Let me say this. It's one of either three things. Either the Titans are right and everybody else who thinks Cam Ward is the 10th best, 12th best, 13th best player in this class, including your people, Joe, Dane Brugler and all of them, either the Titans are right and everybody else is wrong, but the Titans have been wrong a lot lately when everybody else has been right, which gives me a serious, pause. Either that, or the Titans did reach for a quarterback and tried to sell it last night, or Amy was not going to allow them to spend on both a quarterback and the $30 million or so that the first overall pick will command. So because of that, they decided to maximize their payroll and just took the quarterback so that they didn't have to pay for one. It's one of those.
So 35, you get through the first round. We'll see what happens with Sanders and the quarterbacks to begin the second round.
Joe, you have
no. Hold on. I'm asking you a question. Shut up. So
he's got to admit that Shedeur Sanders is a TV prospect.
That was always a dumb statement. It continues to be. Go ahead, Robby.
Well, if you watched TV last night, all it was wall-to-wall Shedeur coverage, and he didn't even go. If there's not a TV prospect, I mean, I'm sorry. He is the definition of a TV prospect.
Okay.
I don't know what that definition is, but you keep trotting it out there.
Yeah, exactly. What's your question?
Well, when the Titans are on the clock going to take Cam Ward and they spend the whole time talking about Shedeur Sanders, that tells you this guy's
pretty annoying. That's pretty annoying. So what do you want to see the Titans do at 35 here with players like Mike Green, Ezeraku from Boston College, Luther Burden, Will Johnson, all those guys still on the board?
So I think I might have some pretty decent intel on Mike Green. And I don't, from what I've been told, Mike Green off the field is not a bad kid. Just from what I've been told, I mean, who knows? But the person I talked to is pretty connected as far as Mike Green is concerned. The one that really, Trevor last night really sold me on this Nick Amanawari, the safety out of South Carolina. And I know Brugler's got him incredibly high on his board, and I think has him 14th overall. And I asked Trevor last night, I said, could Malachi Starks or Amanawari be the type of safeties that play that Minkah Fitzpatrick role? Because while safety is not in a premium position, if you get a really good one like Kyle Hamilton or Ed Reed or Sean Taylor or something like that, they can be a huge game changer. And Trevor said that he didn't think Malachi Starks was that guy out of Georgia, but that he actually thought Amanawari might be that guy. Amanawari is 6'3", which I like. He ran a 4.3, which again, I like. I know safety's not a position of need, but we all believe in best player available. So I don't know what the character concerns with Luther Burden are. I couldn't be the first to tell you what they are or they aren't. If those concerns are real, like if the Titans did their work and they came back and said, yeah, these character concerns are real, I don't think they can take Luther Burden because they don't have a very strong leadership base right now. So if they pass on Burden, that has to be why. I believe that, Trevor laid it out last night, and I agree with this, which is you're going to get one of Burden, Amanawari, or Donovan Ezaraku available to you because you're picking third tonight. I would be happy with any of those three players or a trade back, which still allows me to get an impact player tonight and maybe another player tonight. But I'd have to win the trade value in order to pass on those guys. And Trevor has sold me on the Amanawari kid, again, even though he's a safety, that he could be a game-changing safety.
All right. Go ahead. Real quick, best pick from last night, worst pick from last night, around the league.
Ooh, I think best pick last night goes to the Colts for Tyler Warren. I think that they must have urinated their pants with joy when they saw that Dallas passed on him at 12 and the other teams passed on him. I mean, Tyler Warren, I thought he was of the very few high-end players in this draft. I thought he was one of them. One of the players who didn't really have a trait question mark. Like Mason Graham's undersized. Will Campbell has short arms. Cam Ward is short. Like, instead of that, I'm like, man, he's kind of checks all the boxes, and Indianapolis gets him at 14. They probably got him 2 years too late because they've needed a tight end forever for the young quarterback they have who they're going to bench. So I'll go Indy with the best pick, which is shocking because they're pretty stupid too. And then I have to go Bengals at 17 with Shamar Stewart as the dumbest pick of the night. I mean, them and Dallas taking a guard with the 12th overall pick is certainly up there. But, I mean, think about this. It feels like the Bengals are drafting Shamar Stewart, who sacked the quarterback 4.5 times over 3 years in college, to replace Trey Hendrickson, the leading sacker in the NFL. Like, they're going to trade Trey Hendrickson. They're not going to pay all these guys. So if they trade Trey Hendrickson, they will be taking bona fide year in and year out production and replacing it with somebody who the one thing they have not done in their career in college is produce. And I keep going back to the end of the year. I would have fired Zach Taylor if I was the Bengals. That would have been the most attractive job on the market. You would have had every single coach coming out of the woodwork trying to get that job. I would have shot for Nick Saban. And the reason I would have shot for Nick Saban is to prevent this exact thing from happening, which is the Bengals making the stupidest possible decision when the offense is fine. The Bengals are in that state where, if you remember, the Indianapolis Colts fired Jim Mora Sr. and they went and got Tony Dungy. And it was like, Tony, you worry about the defense because Peyton and Tom Moore with Marvin and Edgerrin and Reggie, they've got the offense figured out. Don't worry about the offense. You worry about the defense. And Zach Taylor's over here drafting a guy who sacked the quarterback 4.5 times. I think it's a disgrace. I think that is easily the worst pick of the night. The Bengals at 17 going Shamar Stewart. If you really love him, trade back. And if he's still there, good. If not, but I hate that pick for Cincinnati.
I'm not kidding that last night Jared's like, Chris Sanders, you ever smoke weed? How about you, Trevor Mannix? You ever smoke weed? I went to Colorado and did some gummies. And I was like, Le'Veon Bell, how do you like weed so much? That was
I
truly
smoke weed constantly.
amazing stuff, man. I mean,
Well, I mean,
also, someone's
that's
asking
the
on the
whole-
text line about what was your Minnesota Wild John Hines prediction? That they like
I thought they were
going to
get
goal?
swept.
That's tough.
No, I thought
man.
they get swept. They didn't get
Not
swept.
over yet.
Are they up
Scene.
2-1?
They're up 2-1.
Tough scene for the Stillinator.
They're up 2-1.
They are.
Beat that ass last
Wow.
night.
They did.
He is one
Coach's butt off.
win away from matching his entire playoff win tenure, if you count the play-in series, of matching his entire tenure with the Predators.
I will say I'm looking forward to a lot of aspects of your show today, Jared. Not the least of which being the Will Campbell pick that Vrabel took of the short arms at number 4 overall. It'll be fun.
I just love that Joe will not admit that Shedeur Sanders is a TV prospect.
So that's funny. Some of the text was like, I guess Aaron Rodgers is a TV prospect too. Yeah, the TV was on. The cameras were on him all day. Jared, I'll admit whatever you want. I just want you to not eat gummies before your show today. Okay.
So I would never do that. I would never go on the air. Like, I don't ever drink or do anything before I go on the air. I would never do that. Number 2.
Good to know.
I would tell you right now that when it comes to TV prospects, think of it like TV teams, right? The Dallas Cowboys can be awful, and they'll still get put on television on Sunday Night Football because they're a TV team. But because Kansas City gets put on TV doesn't mean they're a TV team. They're a team worth putting on television. Same with Buffalo. Shedeur Sanders was not worth being on TV, but he gets put on TV because people have opinions on him and people care and people, but he was never a legitimate bona fide. I bet you the Titans barely even considered Shedeur Sanders. They probably didn't even think more than 5 minutes on Shedeur Sanders.
3,
because
2,
again, Shedeur
30
Sanders
seconds.
was a TV prospect and not a number 1 prospect, but you have him number 1 on your board, you and Mel.
Stilly,
Titans should take him today.
thank
Have
you
a
for
quarterback
being with
battle.
us. Go back to sleep, get you some rest, and we'll be listening at 2:00.
I just want Joe to admit it. See you guys.
See you, Jared. We'll react to what Stilly had to say there next. Take more of your thoughts.
I need somebody burritos. I have to have big
draft.
gummies.
This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in today to 102.5 The Game for Vanderbilt baseball as the Commodores take on Ole Miss. Pregame at 6:15, first pitch at 6:30. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. This week's Nashville's best deal, Fog Street Lawn Club, Nashville's premier soccer pub and rooftop. Fog Street Lawn Club offering scrumptious bites, British lawn bowling, premier soccer pub vibes. Get half off a $30 gift card at thegamenashville.com/deals and dive into the ultimate rooftop experience. Text line's hopping right now.
Text line is hopping. I would like to thank the text line, and I didn't really make the connection, but I've had multiple people, including on my personal text line, that my new Paul Kaharski is Edith Bunker. Archie, I made a roast for you tonight. And that's going to be the new Kaharski from now on, and I can't wait to break it out when he comes in next week. Cam, why did you throw that interception? Oh,
this may end up being my favorite thing you've ever done.
It's not the Cam do's and the What are you doings?
That would loosen some steam with me compared to Edith Bunker.
I'm way too slap happy. I'm not high, by the way. A lot of people also are like, wow, you're telling me Jared does his show sober? You've got to be kidding me. He's not on shrooms?
Boy.
Good times.
Where do you think Shadour's going? You think he's going 33?
That's a great question.
I mean, the Browns have 33 and 36 at the moment after their trade with Jacksonville yesterday. So that is interesting. They're going to have two kind of right off the top here in the second round. But then it gets into the age-old question, Joe, of, well, if you didn't love him in the first round, are you going to love him in the second round? Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But yeah, you know, it was the whole thing with the Titans and Levis, of course. And it's like, well, you got yourself a future perennial all-pro lineman in the first round, see? And then you're able to get Levis in the second.
Yeah.
I could see Cleveland, you know. And look, they may have felt – I mean, the thing is, like, it in all seriousness on Shedeur, I mean, there was a lot of talk about him falling out of the first round, of him not going to the first round, right? So maybe they're just comfortable with that. They felt confident it would happen, but they still like him and would take him now. If not, what other teams picking today? I mean, like, where do the Saints pick?
The Browns are minus 170 on the FanDuel Sportsbook to draft Sanders today, and they are minus 170 at pick number 33. Beyond that, you got the Raiders at plus 550, who took Ashton Jeanty in the first round. The Saints at plus 550, the Rams at plus 900, and the Jets at plus 950.
Okay. Yeah, and, you know, could always be a surprise team. I will say that, you know, if he falls to the fifth round, I'll call him a TV prospect.
I thought you were going to say if he falls to the fifth round, Titans could double up and just go get him and then just hope one of them's good.
Why not take him at 35 if he's sitting there?
Somebody's texting.
There you go.
And
you got a heck of a competition.
Honestly, I wouldn't hate it.
They like each other. They worked out together.
They do. Yeah, and I'm interested to see where he goes. What was your favorite pick from last night?
Well, we got Indy Ben here talking Tyler Warren's going to feast on that Titan secondary linebacker group. I mean, Indy Ben shows up in the good times, and then he disappears during the bad times. But I will say, I really love that pick, man, at 14, and the fact that the Bears took, you know, the Colston Loveland's a good player, very good player. I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL. I think Tyler Warren is special. So I love that. I love the Jeanty pick for the Raiders. And look, man, I know they gave up a lot, but I tell you what, I love the Jags doing what they did. I loved what teams in this division at the Titans' expense did. I think that Travis Hunter is going to be the player from this draft that we talk about 10 years from now. And I've always thought that, and I truly believe it. And I give the Jags and their 19-year-old GM credit for making a play, making a move. Duval.
I'll tell you one that I really like. Egbuka to Tampa at 19. I really like. I think that's got a chance to be pretty good.
And that's a thing. Yeah. No, I do too. That's a nice pick for them, man. To put him and have him in that room with Mike Evans. I mean, that And there are a lot of guys. I mean, a lot of people had him in the second, and there's some guys last night that went. A lot of people, vice versa. And there's people that are sitting there now. But that's shouldn't be that surprising overall, because what have we been talking about? That basically once you get to that top 10, you have a real high tier, and then you get around 10, 12, and then it's like anyone after that could be 40, could be 18, could be 51. And again, this is why there's going to be some really intriguing players for the Titans tonight at 35. But you, as a Titans fan, to me, you should hope that somebody wants to get to 35 and they can trade back and get more picks. They're going to be way better off, to me. I think they're going to be better off just having more players out of this draft.
One more thing on the Cam Ward front that I want to get to coming up next that I don't think is being talked about enough. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
You hear the comparisons with Patrick, obviously a player you know pretty well. I know that's not exactly fair to compare him to someone like that, but do you put any stock in that?
Some of the things I mentioned about instincts and spatial awareness when we studied Patrick coming out, I thought Cam showed that. Now he's got a long way to become Patrick Mahomes, future Hall of Fame with 3 Super Bowls right now. But there were certain traits I think that I saw, that I've been around Patrick a long time. His ability to process and the instincts kind of stood out to me.
That's Mike Morganzi last night on Cam Ward and some of the traits that reminded him of Mahomes throughout this process. And Joe, that's kind of where I wanted to pick up, because we talked yesterday with Bruce Feldman about people that he's talked to about Ward and having a top 10 stroke in the league and the arm talent and all that. Clearly the Titans buy into that. So what do you think they're getting from an arm talent standpoint here? And when you look at Ward's traits, his ability, physical gifts that he brings to the table, we've talked about some of the other comparisons, like, Brugler had him as a slower, taller Kyler Murray. I think he's got a better arm than Kyler Murray. That's just me, but I guess I understand somewhat the comparison there. But I said it early in the process here. You go watch some of his plays last year at Miami, and it doesn't take you long to say, man, good Lord, look at that throw there. What do you think they're getting in terms of just the physical traits that he's bringing to the table and how much that's factoring into where he just went in the draft?
Yeah. The one thing that Brian Callahan said last night, he used the term incredibly accurate. See, that's where I guess I differ. I think at times he makes throws that very few people can make. He makes throws like, who in the NFL do you look at and say, man, not everybody can do that? Obviously, yes, Mahomes and some of the different things he does. But I think of like a Stafford.
Yep.
I think of Justin Herbert, where it's just like, Lamar Jackson will make some of these throws sometimes where it's just like, holy, like
Allen in a different way, but Allen's got, he's got an absolute cannon.
Yeah. And Cam Ward, like some of the throws, again, the good highlight tape of him is amazing. Now remember, the good highlight tape of Malik Willis was amazing too, but I'm just saying, I think he makes astounding throws. The incredibly accurate. The thing is, though, I also feel like he misses some that, like, as he moves forward, you got to get it, hit the mitt more often every time. And that's where, again, Brian Callahan saying incredibly accurate. If you go to the underlying numbers, not going to sit here and, be Mel Kiper and keep hammering you with Shador all day. But Shador's on target throw numbers were quite a bit better than Cam Ward's. Again, does Shador have the ridiculous throw ability? No, not at all. So you'd love to have a golden arm like that. He does. He has that. We talked about the Feldman piece yesterday with an NFL passing coordinator saying, he's top 10 immediately in terms of, just the ability to spin it in this league. So that's special. He'll make throws, whatever they do in the preseason with him. If he plays a series, he'll probably make at least a throw during that series where people are like, oh my, okay. But it's still about the consistency and, again, hitting those layups, hitting those middies over and over and over again. And that's the thing, too, with this offense. Now, how much is this offense? We always think about Joe Burrow and his strengths and his skill set and how that has translated to the Bengals offense. To me, Cam Ward, I don't know. To me, he misses some of those, whereas Burrow is always on point there. And how much do you mold things around what Cam does? I think that's a big part of coaching.
I think it's a big part of coaching. I think that's a big part of how we're going to judge Callahan this year as they get through that process. And what does that look like? And how does it improve? How do you adjust as the year goes on? Because that's another thing. As bad as they were last year and as bad as the quarterback play was and their roster and all that, and believe me, it was bad. I still didn't feel like there were enough answers that Brian Callahan had. So can you have more of those this year with a roster that at the moment is still not great out there? Like, we know that there are limitations to this roster, but can you have a little bit more of that this year if you're Callahan? So let me ask you this, because I heard Stillman bring this up yesterday, and it's not It's not a thought that's just purely to him. Titans fans have asked us about this. Is he automatically the starter week 1? I know you look at the rest of the quarterback room right now and you say, well, good Lord, if he's not, that means that Brandon Allen is, and nobody's excited about that. But, they have talked about Mahomes, and I saw Orlovsky making this comparison again yesterday, and I don't know that I necessarily buy it, but he's talking about McNair. Like, he reminds him of McNair. And is that just because he's going to the Titans, or does he actually remind you of Steve McNair? I don't know. But like McNair sat for a long time. Mahomes sat for a year. It's different situations than the Titans are in right now. But, Callahan did not outright commit to him being the week 1 starter yesterday. Do you think he should be, or would you like to see the Titans, even if it's just for a few weeks to begin the season, sit him to begin the season?
Look, I'd love to see any rookie quarterback come in the league and have the situation that Jordan Love had, or have the situation that Patrick Mahomes had, but I don't think it's realistic. I think he starts week 1. And I think this is part of why, and we got into this whole, argument again last night in the Titans media room. That's why I believe they should move Will Levis, because that's the only, if he's still here, then look, you could look at it like, hey, great, Levis can sort of, can take this, and then whenever Cam's ready, then we can put him in. It'll happen at some point, but you don't have to have that pressure of starting week 1. But here's the thing. If that's the case, if they keep Levis and then they go through camp and whatever they do with reps and Levis is a starter, like, he will be booed out of his home stadium before he can even throw a warm-up pass. Like, Titans fans, you can't do it. I just don't think you can do it. I don't think you can have.
I don't think you're going to either.
The last guy who just a few months ago, there was so much hope that he was going to be the franchise quarterback, and still have him here. And then again, then you have Cam comes out and he's playing for a terrible team, and he's a rookie quarterback, and he throws 3 picks. And then it's like, well, you gotta go to Levis. Then the guys in the locker room, Levis is better right now. What are we doing? Levis is better than Cam. That's why, to me, you move Levis and you have 2 just clear they are not starters, and you give it to him week 1. It's not ideal, but I don't think anything's going to be ideal about this situation. One of the biggest problems that I have with the Cam Ward pick is the team that picked him, because they suck.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. The one thing that I do feel good, like, this is not Anthony Richardson in terms of Richardson was probably more there's no probably. He was more physically gifted than Cam Ward is.
But
he
nowhere near as
barely
ready.
played college football.
Yeah.
Like, and that was my biggest thing with him coming out. And look, Cam Ward and Anthony Richardson are not similar players, so I'm not trying to compare them stylistically. But I'm just saying, what I feel good about with Ward is he's played a lot of football. So how does that translate to being ready to go right from the jump?
I think it's a great point. No, there's a huge difference there. And that is, look, he's played a lot of college football and going through all this stuff. There are a lot of things. Again, I think Brian Callahan was the most revealing last night in terms of the things that they liked about him and all the whole process. And I believed it. It made sense through the combine and everything. But as he's talking about it, it's like, he's good at going on film, and this is what they're in. This is what, like, he can talk it through. He's been a serious football quarterback for many years now, has been on the field a lot, and that should matter.
615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next, taking more of your thoughts on Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans. Don't miss Nashville's best NFL draft coverage on the Game Nashville Sports Network. Today, broadcasting live from Boomba's Pizza and Watch Bar in East Nashville. Covered on Sports Talk 830, begins at 6 o'clock. Presented by Hardee's, Parma Tractor and Equipment, Twin Peaks, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Shane Company, and Professional Home Improvements. Joe Rexrode will be out there today, so looking forward to that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Welcome to the Titans and welcome to Tennessee. Everybody's so excited.
Welcome to Tennessee.
I'm the boss of those other two guys.
Yeah.
All right, so have a good night.
Archie, I made a roast for you tonight. Cam, why did you throw that interception?
This is so frustrating.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode.
Oh, why am I on the radio? Oh, God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, listening public. I'm
Hey.
sorry if you're like looking for like a classic rock station and you come across this.
Miami
God.
sounded pretty good there. Just throwing it out there.
Wait, what sounded pretty good?
Miami impersonation sounded pretty good.
Oh, no, you're
Couldn't really
no,
tell the
no,
difference.
That was yeah, right next to each other. Like, who's who?
Who's
I don't know.
who? Who knows?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Thank you.
I'm going to we're going to continue the draft talk, of course, for the rest of the show, and we will here too. But I need to take a minute here because the YouTube chat,
which is flowing today, by the way.
Yeah, it's I can't keep up with it, so I mean it's to be expected a day like this. But someone who contributes a fair amount, Jay, do we say full names? I guess when people put on the YouTube, we just say their. Do we try to
That is Santa in Portland.
What?
That's who that is. It's Santa in Portland.
J. Rodney Turner is Santa in Portland?
It is. We've just outed his entire identity, but yes.
Okay. So here's the thing, and we've gone back and forth on this, on the whole, his point. Well, Schefter said a rumor. I've seen people say the rumors of this trade. Here's how it works. Did teams lie? Well, you just said teams lie. Yes, teams lie. I mean, on the record, but I'll say like, there's a lot of things that they're not going to. I don't think Mike Borgonzi, when he was asked last night about is Cam Ward the number one player on your board, he said, yep. I don't think that's truthful. I think if at one point they had a board and they probably didn't have Cam Ward as the overall number. Also, again, if you believe you have a franchise, or if you believe you have that guy, then you can have another player in another position ranked higher than them, and you can make that pick. And they did. So we'll see. But the point here is the Schefter report. Guys, it's not a rumor. If Schefter was reporting a lie there, then see, he has accountability with both teams, okay? If what he reported in that offer was a lie, was made up, the Giants know the Titans are going to see his report because he's going to report it, right? So the Titans are going to have a huge issue with that if it's a lie, or vice versa, or both. Like, you have accountability. So, look, I've ripped Schefter before because I like Kaharski. I like the term he used, info merchant. But Adam Schefter does have sources all through the league with GMs, with coaches, obviously with agents. I mean, agents drive a lot of the information that flows in the NFL. That's not a rumor or made up. You can trust that that's an accurate report. I mean, everybody's accountable to each other in these situations. It's an accurate report. That's what the Giants offered. Now, again, he didn't go into every detail of every pick, but the Giants offered a first-round pick next year, and we know this because he reported it. He also asked J. Rodney or Santa. He also asked, well, why did he wait until last night? I believe the Giants probably said you can't say it until then, because now the draft is happening, and it's different than think of the discourse about that before the Titans made the pick, right?
Well, that's all we would have been talking about the last week.
Exactly. So that's why it happens. And yes, it's you're not sitting on it on your own. When can I say this? When can I report this? Also, if you're a reporter and you have to be Schefter, any reporter, I mean, you have 80% of the stuff that you get is off the record and you never end up reporting at all, but it helps inform you. So this is an accurate report, guys. It's not some made up rumor. So let's move forward with that. You can think of it whatever you want. But this idea that Schefter's out here just shooting from the hip, Schefter does get good information.
He does.
I promise you that.
Interesting outfit choice from him last night. Caleb says,
yeah, what the hell was that? Like a hoodie?
I don't know what he was doing.
Jacket?
Just put the suit back on, Adam. It's okay. Caleb says, just go ahead and give J. Rodney's bank account information and home address, too, while you're at it, Joe. Just
Docs.
Possible name out there.
His ATM password is Bosco.
Well, let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, and let's hear from the man himself, Santa in Portland. Santa, welcome to Santa's on the phone with Ian right now. We'll get that we'll get them back on the air here in just a second, but Santa has called in here on the rant. So looking forward to that coming up here in just a few minutes. Look,
great.
Schefter, we've talked about the problems we had with Schefter before. He can't just make that up because then he's going to make the teams mad. Now, I'm not saying that Schefter's gotten some things wrong before.
Sure.
There's a difference between getting things wrong and like just going with rumors.
Like Rappaport got like something on the Antonio Brown trade, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to think what Schefter's, the big issue with Schefter is when he tweets and just lets an agent say, Deshaun Watson, totally cleared. He's just a super innocent, awesome guy.
Like the agent is writing the tweet.
Yeah, but I can't, I'm sure there are things, but
he got something wrong with Derrick Henry one time. I can't remember what it was. I'd have to go back and find it.
Oh, yeah. Well, he and Rappaport were going at each other's throats on that, right? Well, I think Schefter said there's no way he's playing again, and Rappaport said he could play.
Right.
So, I mean, there's sometimes people give you bad information. But, again, on something like this, you're accountable to both teams on this. You're accountable if you're him. You're reporting this in the NFL draft show to millions of people. You're not, hey, I heard a little rumor here. Let's just throw this out there.
Let's welcome in Santa in Portland to the program. Santa, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Or Jay Rodney. Or Jay.
Guys, it's always great to call in and talk to you guys on the show. It's absolutely my favorite thing to do in the morning, to listen to you guys.
Thank you.
I think Joe, you missed my point. My point was not that Schefter was lying.
Okay.
I believe that the Giants could have misled him or say, hey, we offered them the world and they turned us down, because I don't think anybody's believing that they were offering all sorts of stuff to trade up to get Jackson Dart. They wanted Cam Ward as bad as the Titans did, and the Titans got him. And they said no. I think the leak that, oh yeah, we offered them this first and that first and this is, I think that could be a stretch of the truth. And I believe Schefter reported exactly what he was told.
Right. So if you're Schefter in that situation, and again, the key here that he reported is the first next year.
Yep.
So again, you're not just accountable to the Giants. You are accountable to the Titans with reporting that. If you think that Schefter just reported that and just listened to the Giants, that's that you can't. I mean, I promise you that Schefter does his job better than that.
No, but if you listen to what we heard from the Titans, they all they said was, yeah, we got offers, but I'm not going to go into any details.
Yes,
we're not going to
but let me
confirm or deny what was offered to us.
And let me tell you something. If what they reported was inaccurate, this is like when AJ Brown got traded. And the Titans and J-Rob went into total damage control, and they went into spin mode on AJ. If what they reported about the first-round pick was inaccurate, every single person who covers the Titans right now would be out here saying that's BS, because they would make sure that they got that information. They didn't say a thing about it because it's accurate.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
well
but
made.
that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's just like that's just how it works. You know, he can't put that out there, and if it's BS.
Oh no, I have no doubt that what these guys report is what's told to them. I just believe, like you said, that teams lie.
Thank you for the call, Santa. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Or Jay or Rod. I'm
more,
sorry for doxing
any
you.
more information we'd like to give out?
What's your address again?
Let's quickly go to the phone and welcome in Chris and Franklin. Chris, got about 30 seconds for you. Thanks for calling in.
How are you guys doing this morning?
Good, man.
So I know early on in the draft process that there was a lot of discussion between Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders going number 1 overall. I was wondering your opinion, what you guys think about Shadur slipping down the board so far. Why do you think it happened? I was reading that it could possibly be entitlement issues, or it could be the amount of contact he took during college. So just wanted to get your answer on that, and thank you so much, and I'll be listening.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
We'll get to it next hour.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I mean, the Sanders part of this is going to be really interesting today to see what that looks like, but I do have some thoughts on why he slid to this point. We'll get into that. Might ask TD about that as well. Coming up next, Teron Davenport will be with us. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with him, the picking of Cam Ward at number 1, and what's on the docket today for the Titans as round 2 begins. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Friday morning. We head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, host of Talking with TD. TD, good morning. How we doing?
Hey, good morning. How's everybody?
Doing great, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. We know it was a late night last night, so thanks for being with us this morning. So, TD, it's been the worst kept secret for a while now that Cam Ward was going to be a member of the Tennessee Titans, but now he's here and the Cam Ward era begins. So, what do you make now of the situation, knowing that there's still more draft to go, but the situation that Cam Ward is walking into, and what's kind of your sense of excitement from the fan base?
Yeah, it's funny. Brian Callahan said, "Could stop pretending now." So definitely a worst kept secret. But yeah, I mean, I think, bringing in Tyler Lockett, that'll help. But at 35, Luther Burden III is there. You got to consider it. But there's a lot of ways that they could go. I think the big thing is making sure that they have this plan, and Mike Berganzi touched on it multiple times throughout the process, right? And that's building around the quarterback. But you don't want to do that at the expense of other things that you need on the roster, which is what he hit on Tuesday. So it's like, okay, well, a top end pass rusher versus a fifth or sixth receiver. How do you gauge that? So I think those are the questions they're going to be asking.
But I want to ask about Cameron, but since we're talking about this next pick, how about Emmett Warry, man? I know it's not like they have way more pressing needs, but man, I just think that guy. I mean, you knew there'd be some good players sitting here, but if he's sitting there, what do you think about him?
Well, he's very attractive when you talk about the skill set that he brings and things like that. Not sure exactly how they would use him, but I do think that he is getting a little bit more attention than some of the other prospects because of what he did on the
measurables
at the combine.
Yeah.
But look, man, that South Carolina defense was really good. Like they have like 4 guys that should probably go in the first 3 rounds. But when you start comparing him to Malachi Starks, I think it's silly. I think Starks is a different level player. He could drop down in the box and cover well. He's willing to tackle. He's a center fielder. I mean, you're talking about, an Ed Reed-like skill set. And again, I'm comparing skill set, not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but to me, Starks is a better player. And I don't like when those two start to get confused with each other. I think the Titans could go elsewhere. He's a guy that, I don't think they need that position right now. And I don't think he's the huge impact player that a lot of people do.
So, TD, on the Ward front, obviously, I've said for a long time, like if you're the Titans and you think that he's your franchise quarterback, then there's not really a price that somebody could offer where I'd be okay taking. Like we know how important quarterback is in the NFL. Schefter put it out there that, the Giants offered a first-round pick next year among other picks. So what do you make of, I guess, the conviction that the Titans have on Cam Ward? It seems to be very strong heading into this.
Yeah, it's very strong universally, too, because I think when you look at the way they've talked about him and how much they like the leadership, and they look at how being able to talk to multiple programs and get so much good feedback, it really convinced them. And that's, if you remember, last night I asked both of them, Brian Callahan and Mike Berganzi, like, why were you so sure knowing this type of conversation that was available to you? And that's what they said, the leadership. They said, a lot of the intangibles. And you look at Berganzi when he brought up, the spatial awareness, the arm angles, and just, different things that reminded him of Patrick Mahomes when he saw him. So I think that's pretty high praise. And it's a good example of what they believe to be the guy that could turn things around.
Yeah, I totally believe these guys last night talking about Cam Ward. I think that they're all in on him. Like it's clear they are, and I could see it working out. It's going to be exciting and fun to watch him, TD. But a first round next year, whatever else the other picks are, that's what Schefter reported. A first rounder next year. That makes my eyebrow raise. And then you see what the Jags did to go get a guy I think we're going to be talking about for years in this league as one of the great players, which is Travis Hunter. And right now, if the Titans just picked him at 1, they could be sitting there and potentially drafting Shedeur Sanders today and have both of those players. So there's 3 paths right there, TD. There's that stick and pick, and you might be able to get Shedeur, or you take the trade, or you do Cam Ward. I want you to rank those 3 in terms of what you would have done.
Yeah, I think sticking and picking is number 1. And then, I mean, obviously, if you get Shedeur and Travis Hunter, that's a nice combo to bring aboard. And what was the other option?
Well, or just taking the Giants trade, and just moving back and, whatever else happens from that.
Well, yeah, so taking the Giants trade, and then, I mean, if they – yeah, I'll go sticking and picking. Taking Hunter, coming back and getting Shedeur at 35, if they could, if he's going to be there, and then following up with the Giants trade, And I think, this whole idea, we look at draft picks and we're just like, okay, yeah, you know what, that's the golden ticket. Hey, Willy Wonka, it's the golden ticket, But there's a lot of teams who have gotten draft hauls and just, did nothing with it. So I just don't think it's an automatic that, hey, if you get a bunch of draft picks, you're going to automatically, find good players. But I get the concept, So I just think it's just something. It's going to be cool seeing how all this plays out. But I just feel like if you believe that a guy is the one for you, then you just take him. You just take him. That's the way I look at it.
So TD, Joe brought up Travis Hunter going to Jacksonville. You've got Tyler Warren that ends up going to Indianapolis at 14 overall. So a couple of guys that we've talked with you about that are really good players in college that project to be good players at the next level. So what do you make of kind of the way this whole thing shook out for the AFC South in the first round last night, of Ward to the Titans and then potentially a couple of special players in Hunter to the Jags and Warren to the Colts?
Yeah, I think, the Jags did a really good job. I know they traded a lot, but you got what you need times 2, right? They needed a receiver to, complement Brian Thomas Jr., and they needed a corner, to play opposite Tyson Campbell, and they improved both aspects there. And obviously getting a tight end like Tyler Warren is really good for whoever's the quarterback, whether it's, Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. It's a big target that you could go to, and he's got to run the seams, work the middle of the field. It's really good. And don't forget about Houston, right? Like they made, a trade and they acquired draft capital, and here it is. They could end up with, a Luther Burden or somebody like that at the, high in the second round. So I think all 4 teams did well. You like to see that because you want competition. That always makes for good press. So it's definitely a good thing.
Will Levis be on this roster at the end of this weekend, and should he be on this roster, TD?
Yeah, that's the big question. I wonder if they'll be able to package him with one of their picks and move up into a round, to get another top level pick, ideally in the 3rd round. But we'll see. I think I'm not going to say he shouldn't be on the team, but I think they should look to move him, right, and just try to get some conversation and just really hit the reset button for both he and the organization. The one thing I'll say about Levis is he doesn't come across as the type of guy that would, cause issues about not being the starter or not, having Cam Ward be picked. But I do think that it would probably be a better type of situation if they could get rid of him, just to not have both of those guys in there at the same time. But then again, do you really want Brandon Allen, Tim Boyle as the backup? So there's a lot of ways to look at it.
Please talk Kaharski into this tonight. I'm sick of hearing him talk about how Levis should be here.
TD, last.
I mean, there's an argument that could be made for both sides, honestly. And above all else, he's not expensive, right? He's on a 2nd round pick, rookie deal.
TD, last thing for you here. Let's say, for the sake of this discussion, the Titans stick and pick at 35. If you had to pick one guy that's still available that you just really love that's still out there, who would it be?
That's easy. Luther Bird is the third. I mean, look, coming into this year, he was my top receiver. He's been my favorite throughout the year. I know there's some things, personality-wise that they got to sort through, but, he's the guy. And, I mean, you look at Blesto, the scouting service, they had him as the top receiver coming into this year as well. And obviously things didn't work out as much, but you could marry your young receiver to your young quarterback and complement what you have already in there. I think that would be a really, really good pick. So get a first-round guy at 35. Yeah, do that.
Well, TD, great stuff, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us. Enjoy the rest of the draft this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
All right, for sure. Appreciate you guys.
Sir, Teron Davenport, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll take your thoughts on the Titans, the drafting of Cam Ward, and plus what more could be coming today for the Titans as they are at the moment scheduled to pick at number 35. We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Join me in 102.5 The Game from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Coleman Tractor in White House tomorrow for Kubota Orange Days. There will be exclusive deals on compact tractors, zero turns, and more with special financing available. Sale runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. with demos, deals, giveaways, and lunch from 11 to 1. That's tomorrow at the Coleman Tractor of White House, located at 3631 Highway 31 West. I will be out there, so looking forward to that.
Nice.
Coming up tomorrow.
You and I are going to be all over town.
There we are. We're
Men about town.
All around Middle Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do around here. Taking your thoughts on the Titans and the NFL draft. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Dre to the program. Dre, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
What's going on, gentlemen? How you doing this morning?
Doing great, man.
Good.
Hey, man, I think TD kind of played you guys with kitty gloves and whatnot. The whole concept of taking the Hunt kid and then coming back around and getting Shedeur Sanders at 35. Guys, do you notice that Shedeur Sanders is sitting at 35? And there's no guarantee that anybody will draft up to pick him. I think that the pick that we made, man, was the pick we needed to make. It was the excellent pick. If you look at the upsides, if you look at the downsides of this kid, you have a generational talent. I don't trust Travis Hunter because this guy's already told you if you try to turn him into a cornerback, he's going to sit down on you. I think these guys are kind of damaged a little bit, in my opinion, the Travis Hunter situation, and definitely Shedeur because the league has spoken. They don't want his dad in the locker room, destroying the locker room from Colorado. So I think you guys need to leave that alone. I know you're just throwing out scenarios, but that wasn't a scenario that I would go with, and I'm glad the Titans didn't go down that foolish path. I'll hang up and listen to your response.
Thank you, Dre. Appreciate it.
Well, first of all, TD didn't use any kid gloves because TD agrees with me, and he thought Shedeur Sanders was the best QB in this draft. So TD and I believe that. Mel Kiper's on our team, too. Who else is on our team? There's some people on our team. You're right. The league has spoken. What's that?
Dion.
Dion. So, I mean, look, that's fine. We're welcome to have your opinion. I think your opinion on Travis Hunter is atrocious, and we'll find out. He's going to be a man press, a zone, any type of corner you want. And TD and I disagree on this one, by the way. I think he's going to be amazing, but we'll see. We'll see if Cam's great or terrible or whatever in between. We're all guessing. I am glad he brought up Shedeur, though, because we did have the caller previously. Yeah, look, first of all, I really don't think the Dion thing is the prevailing factor here. And I'm sure teams talk about it, it's like, God, that'd be annoying. But, like, if you believe the kid is good enough, I mean, you're going to take a prospect. I mean, Dion, he coaches Colorado. So at his weekly presser, man, they're not, I really wish they would have drafted a left tackle, whatever. I mean, I think parental involvement in pro sports, college sports, as we see in this state,
it's a big problem.
It's still, I think you get to pro sports level, and it's not that. I don't think that's a big deal. But the question of why he fell, first of all, Stilly came on gloating earlier about his TV prospect thing. Meanwhile, last night on the draft show, he said what a lot of people have been saying, which is that Shedeur did hurt himself in Indy. I mean, Shedeur, hey, look, he clearly did. I think some of these people popping off anonymously, it's just one of those things that bothers me sometimes, and we've been talking about that forever. But clearly he did. Yeah. He rubbed some people the wrong way. I don't think he helped himself. So that's part of it. But look, I mean, he doesn't have elite talent, like elite athleticism, elite size, and then you throw in that he rubbed some people the wrong way, and I mean, you can see where he falls in the second round. Again, this is not supposed to be a good quarterback class. 2 went in the first round. The consensus is Cam is the best. That's why he went 1 overall. But, I mean, I don't think Shedeur fall into where he did is some huge shocker. There are a lot of people talking about it going into the draft. It's going to be very interesting today to see, is someone like him enough to move up? Is he sitting there? But look, I again, there's 3 scenarios here. Okay. And I obviously have been not good at, because I think I kind of confused TD on that too. The one scenario is what they did. The other scenario is taking the Giants trade, moving to 3, and then whatever you do, you take Abdul Carter.
You'd have Abdul Carter.
Yeah. And then the third scenario is you take Hunter at 1, and you are sitting here now, going into day 2, potentially able to get Shedeur Sanders. So those are 3 different scenarios. Yeah. I like the other 2 better than what they did, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, look, this tells me that clearly the people that looked at Shedeur Sanders' film don't think he's very good, or at least not what we talked about earlier. Now, he could. He's the odds-on favorite right now to go 33. So you're talking about still the highest pick possible in the second round. That's not a scrub pick by any stretch of the imagination, but like they clearly looked at his film and did not deem him worthy of a first round pick. I mean, he's gotten through the first round, and that's where we're at here. So, all the personality stuff and all the the combine interviews, did those play a part in it? I'm sure it probably did to some degree, but the bottom line is it's quarterback. And if somebody thought that he was good enough to be a first round pick, he would have been a first round pick last night. Like we see that happen all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like Malik Willis, go back to what was there were people the day of the draft saying he's going to the top 5 or number 2 overall, and he goes in the third round. I mean, it's just, these things happen. And this draft, there's a lot of guys who were projected to be first rounders are sitting there right now. And like the Lions took Talik Williams. I mean, most people had him like in the mid 40s, in the first. I mean,
good Lord. Brugler had James Pearson going like 55.
Yeah.
And he went
26.
Yeah, exactly. So
it happens every year.
It happens every year.
But Shedeur is polarizing, and he's a huge and I will agree with Jared to an extent in terms of he's gotten too much attention. You know what I mean? Like,
there's no doubt.
I definitely agree that like is the conversation and the focus on him, and obviously last night on the broadcast it came to a head.
Mel Kiper, I thought I was going to cry.
It's like we'll see. I think he's good. I think he's going to be a good starting quarterback in the league. I would not have picked him at the top of the draft.
No, and what's going to be interesting is where does he go now? Because he is the odds-on favorite to go 33 to the Browns. But look, we talked with Charles last week, and I know people kind of raised their eyebrows about it at the time, but he brought up Jackson Dart going ahead of Sanders, right? And that's exactly what happened last night. Dart went ahead. He also said, like, Jalen Milroe is kind of interesting here. Somebody could look at the ability that he has and say, you know what? I'm taking a shot on him. We know it's probably going to take a couple years for him to sit and develop. But I am not going to be stunned if Milroe goes before Sanders does tonight.
Yeah, no, there's Milroe, Shuck, Sanders. I mean, in some order, those guys will go. I still would guess like Shuck, Sanders. But yeah, man. I mean, the Milroe thing, we were talking about that with possibly the Steelers.
Yeah.
And again, to me, you have to commit to like your offense is different than most NFL offenses. It's built around his incredible running ability, but it could be fun.
So we'll take your thoughts on Cam Ward to the Titans plus 35. That's where the Titans are currently scheduled to pick. Who is left on the board? Who would we like to see the Titans take at 35? And how likely do we think trading out of 35 is for the Titans given the current setup? We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Does the addition of Lockett, change anything as far as the draft, the projections go? And maybe if you could just look ahead just a little bit as to what might be ahead for day 2.
Yeah, not necessarily. It won't change anything that we have on the board, adding the player. I think our mindset is the same. Like I said, and we're going to approach day 2 just seeing who the best available player is on the board for us. Like I said, we have a lot of holes right now that we want to fill. I think we want to stay true to the board and draft the best player that we can.
That's Mike Morganzi last night, looking ahead to what is left for the Titans on the board, currently scheduled to pick at pick number 35. Now, Joe, with some movement last night in the NFL draft, you've got Cleveland at 33, which was originally scheduled to be there. You've got the Texans, who have moved around, and now they're at 34. You've got the Titans at 35 and Cleveland again at 36. So Cleveland has 33 and 36 at the moment in the second round. So going to be interesting to see what they do. Do they go with Sanders right off the bat? Currently, right now, you've got Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan that's available, who was an outstanding player.
Good.
Probably in terms of just pure talent in this draft is a top 10 guy. However, there's some injury concern on him.
Is it anything more than an ACL?
Apparently that's got people really concerned. If
it's an ACL, it's an ACL.
It was enough to knock him out of the first round.
I mean, if it's like some degenerative L'Jarius Sneed thing, then I guess I just missed that.
Right.
Dude, that kid can play.
He can. You got Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall, and I don't know what's going on with him, but he slid out of the first round where people did not think he was sliding. Matter of fact, I think we had Charles on yesterday, and he said he'd be shocked if Mike Green slid out of the first round. But he's out of the first round. You got Emin Wari, the safety out of South Carolina that you brought up. There's Ezraku, the edge rusher out of Boston College. There's Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. There's Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, the receiver. And, of course, there's Luther Burden there as well. So there are options, good options, that are going to be available for the Titans at pick number 35. So as we sit here today, how do you view what's left on the board, what could be there for the Titans, and what's the likelihood that they're going to be able to trade back and get more picks in your mind?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of good questions there. First of all, I'd like to thank TD because, I trust TD, and I've been all on the Emin Wari, like Taylor on the YouTube chat. The fact that he wasn't picked is wild, and TD took umbrage with the idea that people are putting him in the same category as Malachi Starks. Emin Wari is a freak, absolutely. He was off the charts at the combine, and he has been. He was on Feldman's freaks list. And he's productive. But I trust TD. It's like there's still how good is he as a player? Because I've been sitting here this morning thinking, man, I know the Titans don't need a safety. They badly need a receiver. They badly need an edge. They got good options at both. But a rangy, young, awesome safety is more valuable than some people realize. So, but TD's kind of talked me out of that a little bit. I think it's possible they could trade back. I think if their quarterback run happens, does someone feel like they need to, I'm trying to think like how it works out with Cleveland. So like you said, if Cleveland really loves them, they take them at 33.
Yep.
I mean, if they don't, does someone feel like Cleveland's taking him at 36? We got to get to 35. Yep. I mean, maybe that's possible. So, I mean, it's possible they could move back. If they can, I think they should try to. But, I mean, the likelihood is they're going to have to pick at 35. They're going to have really good options. The Mike Green thing's weird to me. Something going on there.
Yeah.
For sure. The Boston College defensive end, I'm just going to call him the Boston College defensive end.
Donovan Ezraku.
Look at you, man. My God, you're a stud. And then the receiver. I mean, I trust TD on this too, and I'm with him. I think Luther Burden's a really good football player. I think getting Luther Burden here. I'm not comparing him, but I'm saying the Titans. When they got AJ Brown in the second round, 2019, that worked out pretty well for them. This could be another second round receiver that could work out pretty well for them.
Well, look, I think there are some really what I wanted to happen for the Titans at 35. I think is in play, and that is there are some really good options at edge rusher, and there are some really good options, I think, at wide receiver. So Then the question becomes, like, I think from their pre-draft press conference, it was pretty clear that they've got an idea of if such and such is here at 35, we're going to take them, and we're not going to try to trade back. How many of these guys that are left fit that bill? Like, does Ezeraku fit that bill? Does Luther Burden, the receiver, fit that bill? I'm interested to see how they take that. Like, it may be as simple as they're not able to trade back. I also, like, maybe it's not just a run on quarterback. Like, what if somebody below them really loves Luther Burden and they want to come up and get Luther Burden? If you're the Titans, how much do you love Luther Burden? And are you willing to trade back, pick up another pick, try to move back and still have – look, this goes pretty deep. I think they can move back, maybe 10 spots in the second round and still have some good players available to them, and then pick up an additional pick on top of that.
And you might love Jaden Higgins more and be like, we can get back to wherever they're going, and we can get him still. No, it doesn't have to be a quarterback. You're right. I mean, it could be any of those, edge or receiver, and it comes down to their board and the separation they have. And if the overall talk of this draft is accurate, then I think if they have the opportunity, they should move back. So I'm looking up this will. So to your point, looking up the Will John, it's unspecified. It's given the Schefter tweet here and some other reports.
Yeah,
man, that's too bad because I'm with you. Well, he's certainly a top half of the first round talent.
If he's healthy, like if he ends up being healthy out of that, somebody's going to get a good player.
They are, but based on what we've seen from this iteration of the Titans front office, he's probably just off their board.
I would think so.
And you know what? I don't hate that as a policy, especially given how things went with the last guys. Real quick, on the YouTube chat, one, Taylor is like, no, he's better than Stark, so he's a South Carolina fan. I watched him play. I think he's really good. But I mean,
Stark's pretty good, man.
Stark's pretty, and the Ravens seem to know what they're doing when it comes to drafting safeties. John asking me, how could you say Shedeur is your top QB, but you're not surprised he fell in the second round? Well, it's not a great QB class. Again, he is my favorite QB of this class, but I would have taken any of these guys at the top of this draft. That's just,
just what it is.
Send
back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Philip to the program. Philip, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. Let me make a quick point. Then I'm gonna get to my thing. The Cleveland could come out as a winner with this. If I was them, I would go Burton with my first, second round pick, and then turn around and draft Shedeur my second, and they could be pretty nicely set there if they were smart with that. But my point I want to make was, and I want y'all opinion on this, Robby and Joe, I call it the Corey Davis effect. Corey Davis was actually a pretty solid receiver for the Titans, considering like his stats and stuff. He was okay, but where he was drafted at made him kind of a bust because he was a top 5 pick. He never put up top 5 pick numbers, but he was a solid Titan. My thing is with Ward. Well, my question is with Ward, what type of player do y'all think he has to be to justify him being picked with the number 1 pick, considering if the Browns did offer two first round picks for him, then we could have possibly had the Giants, sorry about that. Yep. The Giants, if they did offer those picks, then we could have possibly next year had 2 first round picks, and both probably could have been top 5 picks.
Yes.
And I know TD said that it don't matter about the picks, but that does matter because you got a better chance of hitting on 2 extra top 5 picks for next year. That sets your franchise forward in a big time way with those picks. So what type of player do y'all think he has to be to justify that pick of saying, okay, he's a number 1 pick, first round pick for the Titans, and what kind of player comp? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate it. Yep. Look, I've kind of put what do you want him to be? Well, you want him to be one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL.
He's got to be great.
I've kind of made it clear throughout this process, my line of demarcation for him in terms of like what do I want and what would I accept? My line of what I would accept is probably right around what Baker Mayfield is now for Tampa Bay. Not what Baker Mayfield was in Cleveland, what Baker Mayfield is now in Tampa Bay. That's probably what I would accept.
Like this
last year,
Like,
4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns. And I'm not talking
Over
purely
years.
that stat line,
Yeah.
but just that type of play. Like Baker Mayfield has been a very good quarterback the last 2 years in Tampa Bay. He's not been like he's not gonna make anybody's top 5 list, but he's been a very good quarterback, and that's kind of where my line is for the number 1 pick.
So that's your floor.
That's my floor.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, to me, he's got to be great. What is great? I think he's got to end up being over several years. He's got to be a guy who gets you the playoffs, wins playoffs games, gives you a chance to make runs, gets to a second contract, and is in the top 10 to 12, at least top half. I think can you be great and be in the middle of the league? I mean, I think it's possible. You go through all the quarterbacks in this league, like you can find – again, great is sort of that's a word. You have to define the word. But those things to me are important. And, yeah, I think that stat line is great.
Yeah.
If you have that stat line, sure. If you want to nitpick the Baker thing, maybe not as many death picks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Baker's he's a really good player. But he's got it, yeah. And it's a great point by the caller. Like, that's the thing. You're probably looking at 2 high picks next year. So you could use those to get the quarterback after you've done a totally different thing this year. You could have a much better roster for the quarterback you get next year. But, you're in on Cam Ward. So I think that the what are you doings are beating the Cam Do's today. But we'll see. Again, that's going to shift.
This may be your worst work ever. Let's head back to our
Why do you
1025 The Game
say
phone
that?
line. Welcome in Trey to the program. Trey, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
Yeah, man.
Good.
Hey, I would just want to say that I believe, GMs, they talk. It's all a club. They do talk. And I believe that Shadur Sanders' stock has went down because everybody was saying that he was throwing ducks in his pro day. And do y'all believe that his stock is going down? And do you think – I think he'll be a good backup, but I don't think he's starter material. And what do y'all think? And thank y'all for taking my call. Have a good day.
Thank you, Trey. Appreciate it. Well, his stock's clearly going down. And the question is how far? That's what I'm most curious about. I mean, the stock is clearly down. Now, if he ends up getting picked with the first pick today, how big a deal is that at the end of the day? I don't know. I mean, it's the first pick of the second round.
Makes him the
you
Levis.
don't get the 5th year, but he's basically like Levis.
The Levis
right?
of 23.
That's basically what he is. What's going to be interesting is what if Cleveland doesn't take him today at 33, and what if Milroe goes in front of him? What if there are quarterbacks that continue to go in front of him? How far does he slide? That's going to be what's interesting to me today.
Yeah, for sure. There's a point Scott from Hendersonville made about Callahan that I think is worth getting to real fast when we come back.
We'll get into that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Got some tickets to give away to see Stained and Breaking Benjamin at Bridgestone Arena this Sunday. Be caller 5-615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership with a buzz is always about great service. Rexrode, you had a thought you wanted to get to on the text line. Driven by Wilson County Hyundai.
Yep. And then there it is. There it is. Okay. I think this is interesting. We could do a little more of this next week. But the other thing people are not talking about, how this move also solidifies the fact that Borgonzi is all in on Callahan to be this team's coach for the foreseeable future. Because if there was still a question about that, they would have taken the Giants trade, likely had to fire Callahan after Will Levis torpedoed the season. Head coach gets a longer leash with a rookie quarterback. I don't know that it's a fact. I don't know that it solidifies anything. I don't know if it's a fact. I do think that that's how they should be looking at it. I do think that if you weren't going to make the move on him when you brought in the new GM, when it's like, hey, if you've got a guy, and I understand the timing on that's tough, but still, if you weren't going to make a move and you were going to make this move and get a quarterback, then to me, you have to look at it like this should be a 2-year pairing. And then obviously if someone goes at that, it's probably going to be the coach, although teams do give up on quarterbacks in 2 years. But number one overall pick, I think he probably gets 3 years. So, but Callahan, unless this year is an unmitigated disaster on a variety of fronts, I think should have that longer leash.
It's going to be really interesting to see how that happens. Somebody asked earlier about a win total. I think if you're approaching it like Callahan has to hit a certain benchmark this year from a win total standpoint, I think you're approaching it the wrong way if you're the Titans. Look, do they need to win more than 3 games this year? Yeah, they do. So let's see if they can do that. If they're 3-14 again this year or 2-15, then you're probably going to get to a point with Callahan where it's like, man, you love continuity, but you can't go 3-14 and 2-15 in the NFL back-to-back years and think you're going to keep your job. So I recognize that. However, I think the large conversation about whether or not Callahan's the coach after this year should be, what sort of progress does Cam Ward make? How do you feel about the direction that Cam Ward is going after this year? Because if it's positive, it would be a shame to just rip the rug out from underneath him after that, regardless of what your record looks like, unless it's an unmitigated disaster. And I have a hard time believing that you're feeling great about his progress if they're 2-15 at the end of the year. It's just hard for me to believe.
Sure. And it happens. This happens to quarterbacks, and some of them are fine, and it's just what it is. It's just not ideal. It's already a tough situation with Cam Ward. Again, one of the worst things to me about this pick is the team he's joining. Yeah. It's just it's not a good support apparatus for a rookie quarterback right now.
I'm just looking at the quotes. We talked about some draft picks last night that we liked, some that we didn't. When Shamar Stewart went off the board to Cincinnati, I was like, oh, thank God. He's off the board.
The Packers can't take him.
He was doing his press conference last night, and they were talking about, what were the conversations like with the Bengals in the pre-draft process? And he's like, I never talked to him. Didn't do a 30 visit, and I don't recall ever having a meeting with him at the combine. It's like, so the Bengals just took someone that apparently they never had any contact with. It's amazing.
And never made a play.
Did not have a sack in college. Had 4.5 sacks over 3 years, and the Bengals apparently never spoke with him, and they took him. Wow. Interesting strategy there from Cincinnati.
Pretty wild. A lot of people talking about the coverage and the temper tantrums, Sanders, all that, and ignoring the Titans. I will say, obviously, they went overboard with Sanders, but also that the big trade, I do think, kind of cuts into it, right? Yep. Like the huge trade, and also that's a huge news item that the Jags made that trade with the Browns. So, he didn't have enough of a moment on that, on the ESPN coverage at least.
All right, real quick. Who is the second pick by the Titans in the draft, and when does that pick happen?
I'll say that they're not able to trade back and that they take Luther Burden.
Okay. I'll say they do trade back somewhere in the 40s, the low 40s, and they end up with Jaden Higgins at Iowa State.
Okay. There you go. We're on the record.
We'll see how it goes. It's going to be fun today. Obviously, a lot of excitement with the Cam Ward stuff, and now what can you build around Cam Ward here over the next couple of days to try to fortify this team the best you can? We know you can't fix it all, but can you fix some of it moving forward?
Chase and I will be doing a draft show tonight, 6 o'clock.
Make sure you check that out, 6 o'clock here on 102.5 The Game. That does it for us. Hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll be back Monday morning. Jason Big Joe is up next here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.